comfortably.
Right.
It's story time.
Oh, thank you. Then I'll begin.
And then we'll begin.
Different kind of storytelling tonight. Called Winging It, really. The good people. Now, I don't know about you, but I find it hard to find a good book, you know, so I think for some reason that title caught my eye in the paper. You know how they come up with recommended reads at Christmas holidays and things. So when I walked through the library and there was this book that said The Good People, oh, I'll have it. I looked at it and it was Hannah Kent. Oh, Hannah Kent. I just read another book of hers last year. She wrote a book called The Burial Rites, recommended to me by Riverhead Books, the lady behind the counter. I find them very helpful. Can you give me a good book that I could read? I'm going on a plane and they say, oh, this is fantastic, you know, and they're young. That's the first clue you think. Well, I like what they like. And the kind of enthusiastic. Will I be that enthusiastic once I start? However, I got the book, Burial Rites. She did this as a PhD, smart chick is all I can say. Australian, she won heaps of awards with it. It's set in Iceland, and I've got a thing for Iceland. My father was there during the war, and it was so gripping. It's based on the actual fact that this particular woman was the last one executed in Iceland in 1867. Anyway, it's based on historical fact, and she just embellished all. I was away with it. I thought, couldn't put it down. And I had intended, as you do when you're travelling light, cabin baggage only, I'd give the book to the people I was staying with. But they'd had a death in the family. I ended up bringing it back to Australia. I couldn't give it away. Couldn't. You know, even just looking at the cover, it might put them off. So, but finding the good people, well, I thought this is, you know, that's a plus, isn't it? Except when I started reading it, it was Irish, set 1825, 1826. Now, this may surprise you, but I got my DNA done for Christmas. You know, you send away. Guess. Irish. Except, my mouth fell open when I read the piece of it. 57% Irish. Now look at me. But then when I read the small print, it means Irish, Scottish and Welsh. And that's fine because, you know, the border between Scotland and Ireland is very narrow. And, you know, we Scots have always been on the go, you know. So, 57% Irish chilled me a little. So when I found this book was set in Ireland, and it was about, well, a woman, and you know, you read these things and you think, thank God I was born when I was born. Because the poverty, the dirt, the starvation, the ignorance, the illiteracy, it was just coming down on me. I was beginning to shake with it, thinking, this is terrible, this is awful. A child that was born, and you know, they called it a cretin, but the widow, she just lost her husband, decided that he was a fairy. He'd been taken by the fairies, and this was a changeling child. Devastating reading. I mean, I couldn't finish it. I read all day. What day was it? I was supposed to do something else. Anyway, I just sat on the couch and read it. Went to bed, read a bit more, and then went, oh, can't finish this, I don't know. Put it underneath the bed. But I picked it up later and jumped a couple of chapters, so there was too much description. Anyway, so I would recommend Burial Rites to you. And I'm really glad, as I said, that I was born when I was born in Scotland, just such a short while ago. But I'd have to say to you, you know, that reading is such a gift, to be able to read. Do you remember when you first realised, I'm reading? I read it. I went to a school in a wee place called Kelty, mining town, you know, hard working, and the building was black. That was from the stuff from the pit, you know. And I was not a happy child at school. I was used to being in the woods. And they put you behind these railings in this grey black building with tarmac, not a bit of grass to be seen. Anyway, So it was a struggle for me. I was small, very small. I used to get knocked over in the playground. And but my teacher, I loved her. Her name was Miss Campbell. Now you would remember a teacher surely that you loved. I just wanted to stand beside her because she smelled so good. And she had pearls. And I remember her saying, "Come on now, Margaret, look at the picture. Look at the picture." I was 5. I didn't get to read anything at home. My father just read the paper and the print was about this big. "Come on, Margaret, look at the picture." And I'm looking at the picture. I was a nature girl, And there was a funny thing. There was a girl with the strangest clothes on, a hat on. I don't know why she had a hat. It was going to the church. Standing on one leg, and there was a line. It was an ink drawing, beautiful art, from the Radiant Way. John and, I don't know if it was John and Jane, I can't remember. But anyway, here she was, and there was a seagull in the air. And I looked at the word and said, "But beach." The first word I ever recognised was beach. That's kind of prophetic that I ended up in Queensland. And I actually heard the seagull call them. And I heard the sea. Because as a child, going to the sea was the most amazing thing I had done at that stage of my life. Reading and then realising I could go to other worlds was just so important to me. My mother read, she had one of them subscriptions. Now, what would it have been Reader's? No, it wasn't Reader's Digest because they weren't chopped up. But there was some mail order thing. And she used to get these books, and obviously there was some not quite right about them because she used to put a cover on them. A brown paper cover. And she kept them in the coal shed. I mean, when I got older and was a teenager, I'd slip in there and peel off the cover and see what it was. One of them was Lady Charlie's, I remember. But when I was 11, I remember saying, "Mum, can I read one of your books?" So, "I'll have a look." So she came back with The Darling Buds of May by H.E. Bates. Well, I was hooked. I thought the world was going to be sunny. Fathers were going to see perfect all the time. There would be strawberries, there would be handsome young men, there would be abundance. If you've never read the book, it's just fantastic. It's just utopia in the English countryside. The weather is always blissful. So that was not a good start at 11. I learnt a few things at the high school. But at high school I got into other things like nothing Scottish, of course. You weren't allowed to read anything Scottish. We did do Robbie Burns poetry, but I had no mind for recitation. I'm not like this fellow over here. I read things like Wyndham and Asimov and Brave New World and Aldous Huxley and 1984, all those classic books. So they took me on journeys I've never regretted. There are times when things happen in the world today and I think, that's a novel about that. He was right. We're all aiming that way. We're all going to be plugged in wee cells like a bee in a beehive. He was a great writer. But, coming to Australia changed my reading life and world so much. The first book I was given was Let's Talk Strain. Alphabet and loader. I couldn't do it. I couldn't get the cadence of the accent at all. Whereas my sister, she was a natural. My sister was natural for picking up accents. And I remember driving people crazy, getting them saying, "Go and read that to Australia. Read that to me." Well, yeah, because it's written phonetically and make it really. There's something wrong with you. You can't read it. But the book that really clinched it was, my sister sent me a book written by Billy Connolly, and I was travelling in a bus. I like reading in the bus. To Ayers Rock. There was a lot of tourists around me, and Billy Connolly, well, I kept laughing. People were hanging over my seat, trying to read what it was that I was reading. And because, of course, it's in broad Scots, I would have to translate it into Australian. And it didn't do much in the translation. But that set me off in a couple of good friendships that was strict, especially when I kept laughing so much. And surely you've got a book that was really influential in your life. I can't think of, I never read Lord of the Rings. It was this thick. Can you think of a book book that really was influential in your life? Anybody dare call it out?
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. See?
Little Women.
Little Women.
Yeah.
Ian?
Escape to Adventure by Noel Muckman. He's a biologist,
A biologist.
an adventurer.
An adventurer. I am talking about an adventurer. I'll tell you another story.
And Zane Grey.
Yeah. 7 Little Australians I had to read aloud when I first started this job in the school out west. And I'm reading along. You know, if you're not prepared, I didn't know Meg was going to die. Dear God in heaven, the kids all knew my name was Meg. And I guess the really sad bit, and the kids were all, I mean, you need to read aloud to kids, really. They're like wee nestlings in a nest. The necks are all stretched up looking at you. And my voice began to break. I had to hand it over to the teacher. I couldn't go on. Meg was dying. I cried on the veranda. Like, I'm the sort of person that gets involved in the story. I see it all. I feel it all. And that's what makes me good at reading aloud, I think, and telling stories when I get the chance. But, you know, one time, how's my time going? Oh, one time I had an interesting experience in that I'd been on a bus trip. And I was travelling through Canada on a Greyhound bus in the days when it was safe to travel on Greyhound buses. And I was on my own, and I thought, I'll just get a book, you know, I'd stop somewhere in the middle of past Kamloops. The Rocky Mountains are going up like this, and I'm thinking, just see the mountains in Scotland, they're better than that. and we pulled in, and there was a table outside this cabin where you got cups of tea and coffee. And you go down, oh, you know how you go like this all the time. Castagnier, I've heard of him, I'll take that. Journey to Ixaron. Now, I had heard about him. I know he'd written a set in the 70s. He was kind of trendy because he was kind of mystical. I mean, he's since been disproved. That doesn't matter. I was in the 80s? Yeah, it was the 80s. So I took this book and I read it in the bus, you know. And he makes some pretty weird predictions in it. And I'm reading this going, yeah, right. Yeah. Still mountains, reading on and on. And then he said something, he said, and I will prove to you now that what I say is true. Something is going to happen. I went, yeah, right. Put the book down on the seat, thought, this man is really up himself. And next thing, the bus stops. And a whole mob of lumberjack types come on, and really, they had the shirts on, they were guffawing and laughing, the caps on, they walk past me and get up into the back seat. I'm about third from the back. And start off again, you know, the way the Greyhound buses do, off we go. But this time I'll calm down and I go, the book's not there. Oh, must have fallen off the seat. I'll look underneath the seat. No book. Maybe the side, look on the side. Then I lie along, this is getting a bit obvious by now. I lie along the seat and look down the gangway. I get down and I look at all the legs on the side of the book anyway. And then I go, those fellas walk past. One of those buggers has picked up my book. And I turned, and here they are, all sitting in the back seat laughing and joking. You know? And I look at them. Which one of you has stolen my book? You know, look, like what's wrong with her? You know? Kill them with my eagle eye. Doesn't work, they'll laugh. And I'm sitting there, and I think, wow, that's strange, isn't it? Took me a few miles before I said, all right then, I accept that there is another power greater than me. And I looked underneath the seat. Now I had done that many a time. And there it was. So I picked up the book, put it carefully in my bag. And I read all the rest of the Castanegas. I came out none the wiser, and you see me as I am today. But I do feel that that experience did shift me just a little bit that way. And there are books that do that to you. One of them I read recently. You remember the two fat ladies? One of them was in the sidecar, and the
Yes.
other one was on the side, Jennifer. Clarissa Dixon Wright was a lady in her own right. But she was an alcoholic who couldn't get out of bed without a bottle of vodka downed in the morning. She drank and had high old times through 2.6 million inheritance. She did the weirdest, her book is called Spilling the Beans, her autobiography. She did the weirdest and craziest things. And I'm reading this book going, no, she didn't. She did. I mean, it was really entertaining. What a life. And she was made a rector of Aberdeen University, I remember that. I mean, she was the youngest woman called to the bar. She was really smart. But the drink got a hold of her. She said she screwed somebody behind the Speaker's chair in the House of Commons. But she wouldn't say who. She had various ideas about Princess Di and a few other famous people that she put down her ideas, and you think, oh, I didn't know that. And somehow or other, she always seemed to get by. And she said, at the end of the book, I have a wonderful life. She'd been sober for 14 years. She was one of the alcoholics who couldn't dare have one little bet. She stopped drinking like that. But she died just the same. I think she died in 2014. So I recommend that book to you. And as far as other books are concerned, I mean, go think back, if you can, to the books that you enjoyed when you were young. There are some classic books that they're supposed to be for kids, but really, they're for us all. And they need reading, and reading out loud. I've got a friend who's 92, she can't see that well. But to read aloud to her, that's something else. And there's a favourite of mine that I like to read aloud when things get tough. The Wind in the Willows. The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Burial rites not, but life and joy. And thank goodness for reading. Thank you.